Good afternoon. There's an ongoing investigation following a deadly collision in Etobicoke last night.
A man was killed after crashing into a parked dump truck. It's the latest fatality on city streets, which have significantly increased compared to this time last year. CTV's Janice Golding has been following the safety concerns on our roads and joins us live now with more. Janice.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, Toronto police say the numbers are concerning. A huge uptick in the number of traffic fatalities in our city year over year. And the numbers are even more dramatic when compared to 2 years ago. We're live, as you mentioned, at the scene of the latest horrific accident here in Etobicoke. A single vehicle crash on Shorncliffe and Bramshot. Police say a vehicle left the road at around 6:30 last night and crashed into a parked truck, and the driver lost his life. Police say they're fairly confident aggressive driving and speed both played a factor in the collision. It's part of what police are calling an alarming trend, saying aggressive and distracted driving along with speeding have caused pedestrian fatalities to spike 56% year over year, and they're actually up 75% compared to 2024. Traffic Services says the numbers are far worse for motorcyclists. Here's Sergeant Murray Campbell.
We have had a 28% increase from last year at this time that involved all sorts of people that are using the roadways. A significant increase has been shown with our motorcycle operators and our pedestrians this year. So our motorcycle operator deaths this year are up 500% compared to the same time last year.
The police are asking motorists to slow down and pay attention to the roads, but also say both pedestrians and drivers need to do their part. Meanwhile, when we asked them about speed enforcement cameras, which, as you know, the province did away with in November last year, they say any additional resources that law enforcement could have to help get drivers to drive more safely and obey the speed limit would be welcome. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Michelle and Nathan.
All right, thank you, Janice. TTC officials are sharing details about upcoming infrastructure upgrades to Line 1 ahead of the FIFA World Cup right now. Let's listen in.
When I joined the TTC circa 10 months ago, I committed to aggressively reduce speed zones. At the time when I joined, there were nearly 30 reduced speed zones. Let me repeat that one more time. Nearly 30 reduced speed zones across the network. Today, we have 6. And following this work, that number will reduce again further. That's real progress. And importantly, we're not just simply doing this for today. We are doing this to strengthen the system ahead of FIFA, and more importantly, for the long-term future of our network. We are planning this strategically to maximize every closure, minimize repeat disruptions and failures, and ensure our infrastructure remains safe, reliable, and fit going forward. Again, thank you to our customers for their continued support and patience as we carry out these critical, essential works. I now hand over to Fort Monaco, Chief Operating Officer, who will walk through the details of these critical works in depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandeep, and good morning, everybody. Just here, going to outline the 4 big scopes of work that are going to be happening in the aforementioned closure and the single line operation. Yorkdale to Wilson on the southbound direction is going to take 2 days, and that's where the repairs will focus on a defective concrete slab that our track rests on. Our crews will complete a complete pour with sufficient time required for proper curing of the epoxy to ensure long-term durability and safety. That will take 1 restricted speed zone out. Yorkdale to Wilson, northbound, which is work that is going to be occurring during the aforementioned Sunday period, that is rail installation work to address a defect found through our non-destructive testing on our track network. That removes 1 restricted speed zone currently at 20 kilometers per hour. Glencairn to Wilson, to Lawrence Wells, my apologies, on the northbound, that is additional rail defects that will be corrected to the installation of multiple pieces of rail that will remove one restricted speed zone, currently at 25 kilometers per hour. And lastly, DuPont to St. Clair West on the northbound, that will include work that will involve reinstallation, regaging, replacement of hardware and anchors on our rails network that will remove one restricted speed zone. As Mandeep mentioned, we appreciate everybody's patience. It is an inconvenience to our customers. We appreciate that. We'll also outline that single line operation in this area has been trialed back in 2023 and 2024, but I want to be very clear that was on the weekends. And this single line operation will be, as everybody knows, on a weekday, which is a Monday. I will also lastly mention that this is a challenging area for the TTC because this is an area very close to Wilson Yard, and Wilson Yard is the hub that basically dispatches the majority of our trains on Line 1. So this is an area that consistently sees in and around 60 minutes of actual work time every single night. So it is a challenge that we're trying to address. I will also mention that the heavy works will all occur on the Sunday. The single line operation on Monday is strictly to allow for the curing of the grout that's going to be required. So the work will happen on Sunday, but we need that extra 24 hours to allow for proper curing. And I will say this is a permanent repair, very much required to remove the aforementioned restricted speed zone in the Wilson to Yorkdale area. So we're happy to take questions.
Oh, okay, one question and one follow-up. Name and affiliation, please.
Hey guys, Aiden from Toronto today here. On the speed zones, so there's 4 being lifted today, but the persistent one southbound Eglinton to here still says TBD on the TTC's website. Wondering if you could update us on how the work's going there and if you have a timeline for resolution on that.
So good questions. Yeah, so it currently is TBD. We're trying to schedule that to have it happen before FIFA begins. So at this point, we're just trying to go into the final stages of planning that piece of work. But the intention is to try to go into FIFA with as low a number of speed zones as possible. So it is TBD, but I expect to get a date in the coming day or so. And my intention is to have it cleared definitely by FIFA.
And then slightly separate topic. So we're next to the work cars here. It's been about a month since I asked Mandeep for an update on the oil leak investigation and where we are with getting these guys back in service. I think you said 14 or something around that in early May. So just wondering, kind of where we are on that as well.
Take that. Yeah, so we're currently, I believe, at 35 now back in service. So that's about half of our fleet. We've taken a very pragmatic, practical approach, risk-based approach to get these work cars back. So a lot of the work has recommenced. There's still some work to do to get the remainder of the fleet, but confident that we'll get that done in the coming weeks.
I mean, FIFA is in less than 2 weeks. Is this last minute? Why wait until now to do these changes?
So again, good question. I don't think it's last minute. I think the idea is that we always had a plan to try to get all the critical work done prior to FIFA. There have been some movements and shifting in our schedules. One of them was the aforementioned grounding of the work cars, which did cause us to have to replan and reshift and refocus. The other part, of course, is we're also trying to work very carefully to ensure with our city partners and all the events in the city that we also try to minimize impacts to other city events. So in doing that, there's been a few changes to our closure plans. We've had to forego some weekend closures or single-day closures to make that happen. So it's just part of the dynamic process that we undertake in terms of planning, but the intention was always to get to FIFA with as low a number of restricted speed zones as possible.
Of course, how much time?
Are listening to TTC officials announcing that they still got some work to do before FIFA begins next week, some infrastructure work on Line 1. The majority of the work will be done on Sunday, but also on Monday, more work will have to continue between mainly the Wilson to Yorkdale area. So they're just giving us a heads up, but they've already announced that more than 600 ambassadors will be working on the TTC to help visitors navigate the system during the FIFA World Cup, and they do expect about 80% of spectators to use the service. Of course, we'll keep on following this news.
Police are on the hunt for a suspect in connection with an assault in the city's East End. Police have released these images of the suspect, who is described as being in his mid to late 20s with a slim build and dark hair. He was last seen wearing a basketball jersey, black pants, running shoes, and a black crossbody bag. Police say on May 17th, the suspect attacked a victim on a streetcar near Coxwell and Queen before running away. Police say the assault was unprovoked and the victim was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Still to come on CTV News at noon, a new survey finds an overwhelming majority of Canadians are frustrated with the healthcare system and want to see changes. We'll have more on the data a little later in the newscast. But first, the mayor has announced the city's school food program will be expanding to 77 new schools.
The announcement was made at a Second Harvest facility in Etobicoke this morning. CTV's Rahim Ladhani has been following this story and joins us now with more details. Rahim.
Hi, Nathan. Yeah, there were essentially two announcements today. The first, as Michelle mentioned, is the expansion of the school food program to include 77 new schools. The hope is that will reach an additional 27,000 students. The second, the city is making a $3 million annual investment in a food distribution center. That includes a micro-processing plant right here in Etobicoke at Second Harvest. The facility is going to help prepare food for schools that don't have the kitchens or staff or equipment to do it themselves. The mayor says the city is now on track to serve all 330,000 public school students by the fall. City Hall also says the expansion could save some families nearly $900 a year on groceries while helping more kids access healthy food at schools. As for the new microprocessing facility, it's going to help get Ontario-grown foods like apples, pears, carrots, and dairy products into schools across the city. When the facility is fully operational later this year, it's expected to help serve about 70,000 students. Here's more from the mayor and Second Harvest.
No matter what's happening at home, rising rents, overdue bills, your children will get a healthy meal at school. That is our pledge, and we're making it happen.
We're building out a microprocessing center right here so that we can get all this great farmer food that we got already and then cut it, clean it, and package it so that it can go to schools in a way that kids can eat it.
So this microprocessing facility is expected to be up and running by later this year, and the goal is to actually create 15 new jobs. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladhani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. Parents still have a chance to share their opinions with the province on new protections for students with medical conditions. The Ford government says the measures will include students with diabetes, epilepsy, severe allergies, and asthma. The proposed changes would ensure all school boards use the same form of creating care plans and require standardized training for staff. The province is still consulting about potential changes, and comments can be submitted until July 12th to school boards and other stakeholders engaged in consultations.
The province is investing $4 million to increase student access to practical learning outside the classroom.
When students have opportunities to put their learning into practice, they leave school better prepared for whatever path they choose. Now, this investment will help more students access those experiences and build a strong foundation for the future. Through these partnerships, students will have opportunities to strengthen communication, teamwork, and problem-solving skills, develop confidence through their new experiences, and give back through services in their communities.
This investment is being made in partnership with the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Canada, as well as the King's Trust Canada. The province says school boards that will be taking part in the programs will communicate more information to parents and students directly.
The spring session at Queen's Park is set to wrap up today. MPPs will rise for the summer and will not sit again until mid-September. The current session has featured debate over the province's legislation to take over the city's stake in Billy Bishop Airport, changes to the Freedom of Information rules, and the purchase and subsequent resale of a private jet for the Premier.
Time for our first check on the forecast. A live look at the city this afternoon. Nathan Phillips Square all decked out in FIFA. Beautiful day to play a sport, to get outside, to have a picnic, all the things. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. And definitely feeling a little bit warmer, Lindsay, than yesterday.
Yes, we've turned up the heat ever so slightly, Michelle, and we will continue to do so as this week goes on. In fact, before the week is over, our temperature could be near 30 degrees. Right now, very comfortable, very pleasant, 24 this hour at Pearson Airport. You may find it a little cooler, by the lake and also for lakeshore communities around Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, thanks in part to a northerly wind. So that's a difference from yesterday, only interestingly enough, our temperature is going to be a little bit warmer today. On the satellite and radar, once again, not much to see here. It is another day of sun. We expect mainly sunny skies through the afternoon to partly cloudy conditions, depending on where you are. 26 is our forecast daytime high for today. And once again, we have jumped back into very high territory on the UV index. We're at an 8 here in the city of Toronto, so don't forget that sunscreen before you venture out today. There is rain in the forecast over the next 7 days. We will show you when coming up. For now, though, Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Did you fill out your census? Stats Canada is beginning in-person follow-up visits with households that have not yet completed theirs. Millions of Canadians have already responded online, on paper, or by phone. Census enumerators will begin contacting households that did not fill out the questionnaire by phone and by going door to door. They can also assist people in completing the form. The Census of Population collects demographic, social, and economic information from homes across the country to provide data that help guide decisions about programs, services, and infrastructure in communities across the country.
A new survey suggests Canadians are not satisfied with the country's healthcare system and want to see changes. CTV's Renee Rogers has been taking a closer look at the data and joins us live now with more. Renee, so Santis Health and Nanos Research came out with these polls on the state of healthcare. Walk us through some of the findings.
Hi, Nathan. Well, you know, it's no secret that the healthcare system here in Canada does have some challenges. And a couple of the big ones are staffing shortages and long wait times. And now this new poll is showing that the vast majority of Canadians are frustrated with the healthcare system and want to see widespread changes. Let's bring up our first slide. It will show you that 91% of Canadians, or 9 in 10, say that the healthcare system must change. And then more than half, 55%, say that the system is not only headed off course, but it's headed in the wrong direction entirely. And 70% say that they are worried or frustrated about the state of the healthcare system. In fact, only 14% said that they believe the system is headed in the right direction. Now, when it comes to Canadians' top concerns, a quarter of respondents pointed to long wait times. And in fact, in Ontario, it's even worse. 28% are pointing to long wait times as a major concern for them. Now, just over 12% across Canada said that they're most worried about poor access to services, and 11.5% say that their top concern is staffing shortages. But again, Nathan, 9 in 10 Canadians expressing frustration, saying that the healthcare system needs an overhaul, not painting a great picture of where healthcare in this country stands right now.
For sure. And what did the survey say, Renee, about some potential solutions?
So Canadians were asked about whether they would be open to different forms of non-traditional health care in the name of improving the system. And 69% say that they would be open to receiving routine care and prescriptions from healthcare professionals other than doctors. So, for example, pharmacists, physician assistants, nurse practitioners. And another concern is that health information in this country is poorly integrated. So 53% say that they would be open to having a digital health wallet that they would own, and it would allow them to instantly share their full medical history with any doctor or hospital of their choice. And 43% open to using virtual care and digital tools to consult with healthcare providers. Another interesting statistic out of this is that 7 in 10 Canadians, Nathan, say that there needs to be at least a role for private health care if we want the system to improve. Now, one thing, though, kind of interesting as well, Nathan, one thing Canadians are not receptive to is paying higher taxes for better medical care. Only 15% say that is something that they would be open to. So it really sort of is showing that Canadians feel like they are paying enough right now, but perhaps frustrated with what they're getting back in response.
Understood. CTV's Renee Rogers in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has acknowledged the weakness in Canada's economy, but defended his government's economic agenda without using the word recession.
This government's been in the process of laying the foundations for a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canadian economy. That process is settling in during that time as we make major investments, major changes to how the government operates, how we do major projects, how we have new trade agreements with other countries. It's always difficult. I should always remember to go up the stairs more slowly or get in better shape. As we do all that, the data is going to be uneven, and we see some weakness, in part because of clear decisions by the governments.
Today, the Prime Minister wouldn't even answer your question. You asked him point blank, are we in a recession? And he refused to answer that question. 5 days have gone by, and the Prime Minister has been in hiding from this devastating economic report. And when he does finally appear, he can't even answer a basic yes or no question. What he should have said is that, yes, we are in a recession, and yes, the single mothers who are having to turn back items to the checkout in grocery stores and then go to food banks that have also run out of food, they deserve a Prime Minister who will look them in the eye and say, admit that there is a recession. The young couple that's been working for 4 years, living in a 400-square-foot apartment, can't afford a home, they deserve the Prime Minister to tell them the truth, that yes, he has caused them a recession. The father in Windsor who's gone home to tell his kids that he's lost his job, they're going to have to sell the home, there's not going to be any hockey or vacation this summer, they deserve to have a Prime Minister who tells the truth, that we are the only country in the G7 that is in a recession.
The comments come after Stats Canada released a report stating the country is in a technical recession after economic growth stalled in the first 2 quarters of 2026.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a proclamation making changes to certain tariffs on metals, including steel, aluminum, and copper imports. The White House says the adjusted tariffs will drop from 25% down to 15%. The change will mostly impact agricultural equipment as part of a move to help U.S. farmers facing higher costs because of the ongoing war with Iran. The order will also allow foreign companies to qualify for a 10% duty rate if their equipment contains at least 85% American steel or aluminum. The changes take effect next Monday and will remain in place through to the end of 2027. Meantime, Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is visiting Washington, D.C. today. He's set to meet with U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Official trade talks between Ottawa and Washington have not started yet, ahead of a mandatory review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. The U.S. and Mexico wrapped up their first round of bilateral talks last week. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has been following the ongoing trade situation and joins us live now from Ottawa with more. Annie, what more can you tell us about talks with Greer and LeBlanc? LeBlanc, we understand, has sent a letter outlining Canada's recommendations for a renewal of CUSMA. How's that being received?
That's right. So this is the first time that the two are meeting in Washington since March. So the fact that this meeting is happening alone, that is a sign of progress. And it's a good thing because talks have essentially been stalled. And as you point out, no formal talks have officially begun yet. There's no date set for when Canada and the U.S. will begin these official talks, despite the fact that Mexico and the United States have already finished their first round of negotiations in these formal talks. Now, you're right. He did send this letter today. And what's new about the letter to the Americans is that Canada is saying that it is supportive of renewing the current CUSMA deal for 16 years. That is one of the options on the table here. He also says that Canada is open to looking at and considering any type of proposal from the Americans, the Mexicans, or both, as long as there are benefits for both sides, for all three players here. So Canada's saying, look, we like the CUSMA agreement as is. Let's continue this for the next 16 years. But they also say that they're open to proposals and to amending the deal. And most experts that you talk to, Michelle, will say that's most likely the scenario that's going to happen. The other option here is that after July 1st, Canada, Mexico, and the United States could agree that they want to undertake annual reviews for the next 10 years with the goal of creating an updated CUSMA or a 2.0 agreement. Then they would do annual reviews with up to 10 years to create a new agreement. And that is what most experts say is going to be the most likely scenario. Will there be much progress made today in terms of, getting a date set for when formal talks will begin? It's unlikely, but it's possible. Most likely, the two are going to be talking about the trade irritants that currently exist between the two countries, Michelle.
So we've got the U.S. and Mexico already talking. What's it going to take for the Americans to sit down with Canada and get this deal? Any sense of the next steps?
Well, the Prime Minister today seemed fairly optimistic that that's going to happen quickly. He said that the United States had about 60 issues with the Mexicans that they wanted to solve first. He called those technical issues. He said that Canada only has about 30 issues to deal with the United States on. Here's what the Prime Minister had to say today about these negotiations.
There's a series of issues, technical issues that they have with Mexico, they have with us, which is why there's a bifurcated discussion. So 30 issues or so with us, more than almost 60, I think, with Mexico at current count. And so we're working through a series of those issues. They're of varying technicality, if I can put them, and some of them are provincial. But for us, there's the more fundamental structural issues.
So the Prime Minister seemed fairly optimistic about the talks and about today's conversation between LeBlanc and Greer. But what are those structural issues, you're asking? Well, one of the big ones here is tariffs, and that for sure is going to come up in this discussion today. Canada wants to see tariffs removed on steel, aluminum, and the auto sector. The Americans have signaled that there's going to be some type of tariff still remaining in a most likely scenario. So there is a big difference here between the two sides is around tariffs, and that's going to be a thorny subject up for discussion at almost every meeting. You also heard the Prime Minister say that some of these trade irritants are provincial, and we know that the Americans have flagged the fact that liquor, beer, and wine is not being sold in many Canadian liquor stores like the LCBO, and they want to see that change. So this is another area of discussion. Supply management, also a big area of discussion. The Americans say that the supply management system as is unfair to American farmers. They want to see quotas changed, and they want more American dairy into Canada. The Prime Minister has said absolutely not. There will be no changes to supply management. That's not even on the table. So some big issues here to get through, but experts are saying that they're not surprised that the Americans are starting with Mexico. That's what happened when CUSMA was initially negotiated during Donald Trump's first term. The Americans and Mexico kind of came up with a baseline deal. The Mexicans agreed to some consolations. Then what happened was the Americans brought that essentially framework of a deal to the Canadians and started negotiating from there. So what will it take to get to formal talks? Hopefully a positive meeting today will provide some more insight on when that could begin and how soon, and maybe even a date gets scheduled, Michelle.
And we know you'll be following it closely. CTV's Annie Bergeron, all over live in Ottawa this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Florida has become the first U.S. state to sue OpenAI and its CEO, Sam Altman, accusing the tech company of misrepresenting the safety of its ChatGPT platform.
For endangering our kids and deceiving parents into believing that this application is safe for use. It's clearly not.
The lawsuit cites a deadly shooting at a university in Tallahassee last year, as well as several other incidents where ChatGPT allegedly provided information to people who went on to carry out acts of violence. The lawsuit accuses OpenAI of deceptive and unfair trade practices, negligence, and violating product liability laws. Florida's legal action comes more than a month after 7 lawsuits were filed against OpenAI by families of victims of the mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Both the company and CEO, Sam Altman, are accused of ignoring the shooter's troubling interactions with ChatGPT. 8 people were killed, including 6 children, when a teenager opened fire at a high school in Tumbler Ridge in February.
In the Middle East, Israeli drone strikes on southern Lebanon today killed 8 people. Israel says it will keep attacking if Hezbollah does. The Iranian-backed militant group continued launching dozens of projectiles and drones toward Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon and civilians in Israel. Israeli troops have made their deepest incursion into Lebanon in 26 years and threatened to strike Beirut's southern suburbs. Yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump said Israel had agreed to not send soldiers to Beirut Beirut and that both sides had agreed to dial back fighting. A ceasefire began in April, but hostilities have continued. Another round of talks between Israel and Lebanon begins today in Washington. Iran has reportedly stopped communicating with mediators, meantime, after Israel threatened to attack Beirut. Tehran insists the fighting in Lebanon is part of the wider ceasefire talks with the U.S. The Americans and Israelis maintain the hostilities in Lebanon are separate from the Iran war talks. A regional Iranian official says there has been no communication today, indicating a truce needs to be enforced in Lebanon for negotiations to continue. But the U.S. remains optimistic.
There is the prospect before us, which could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen next week, that for the first time, certainly in my memory, they have agreed to negotiate aspects of their nuclear program that just a month ago or just a year ago, they were refusing to even mention, much less enter into discussions about. That is not a guarantee that ultimately it will lead to a deal that's acceptable to the Senate or acceptable to the American people.
The U.S. Secretary of State is appearing at back-to-back hearings on Capitol Hill today. He is presenting the State Department's annual budget request, but the focus is shifting to the unsteady ceasefire between Washington and Tehran.
In Ukraine, a Russian attack against Kyiv and other cities killed at least 18 civilians and injured more than 100 others. More than 600 drones and over 70 missiles were launched, stretching from night into day. Residents in the capital have been on edge for days after Moscow warned a massive aerial attack was coming. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appealed for more U.S. and European support. He described the attacks as an explicit statement by Russia that if his country is not protected from ballistic missiles and other missiles, these strikes will continue.
Commemorations today marking 80 years since the inception of the Italian Republic. Italy's president placed a wreath laying at the Unknown Soldiers Memorial Monument. On June 2nd of 1946, a vote was held to elect the Constituent Assembly, which would go on to draft the Italian Constitution, as well as the referendum to decide the country's future political system, monarchy or republic. Women were called to vote for the first time in a national consultation, marking their recognition as full citizens.
A collection of late 19th century wine that for years was hidden under the chapel floor of a Czech castle has been painstakingly restored. Now, this is some of the restored wine. Officials wanted it to be as authentic as possible, so the dust was preserved on the 133 bottles. The only change was the recorking of several bottles. The wine was hidden at the end of the Second World War by the owners of the castle. Most date from 1892 to 1899 and weren't discovered until 1985. The very humid and cold cellar provided good conditions for conserving the wine, which could fetch thousands of dollars.
Well, yesterday we talked about June 1st marking the start of meteorological summer. But did you know it's also the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season? And if and when a tropical cyclone develops in the Atlantic this year, this is the order of names that will be given to them. So maybe you recognize someone in your family or a friend who might have a hurricane named after them this year. Bringing it closer to home, today's forecast daytime high is 26 degrees. We're going to tap into even more heat before the weekend. Then there's a bit of a cool down, and yes, we've got some unsettled weather to talk about too. Stay with us. A look at what you can expect for Saturday and Sunday coming up here on CTV News at noon.
A public art project is taking over downtown Sankofa Square, and it's transforming everyday infrastructure into larger-than-life artwork. CTV's Jessica Smith joins us live now to tell us more. Jess.
Michelle, this is the perfect space to have something like this because you've got so much potential, and there's the world that really comes through Sankofa Square. And with FIFA just around the corner, even more people will be in the city. Marnie, I want to talk to you. You're kind of behind a lot of the project with Sankofa Square. Why have this collaboration to put public art on some of these really interesting pieces?
For the art that we have around us right now, sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Well, why bring it here? I mean, obviously, Sankofa Square has got a lot going on.
A lot going on right now. It's hard to hear. Lots lots of music around us. So we have, we're debuting art on the square today, on the infrastructure, on our bins and our benches, with 150 artists that submitted their artwork, and we chose 4, which Trevor will be able to talk more about. But that's here. We want the community to be part of the square and also change the shape and the face of the square.
And Trevor, I want to ask you, I'll get close so you don't have to struggle to hear. I know it was hard to pick the 4 artists, but all the different work here is so different, and it represents the city in a different way. How did you choose the different people and the themes inside of them, because they represent each person so specifically?
Yeah, so we had about 160 submissions, and we had 2 community jurors, Henia Cheng and Adetonio Makanye, and we worked with the Sankofa team and led a curatorial process with the jurors to select these 4 artists: Abenaki Timoteo, Adam Zamaning, Chantel Dorshani, and Sharon Bassi.
And how does it feel to see this kind of come to fruition finally at a time where we're about to have the world come to our city with FIFA just around the corner?
I think it's a good representation of the city. It both embodies the spirit of Sankofa, but also the wider Toronto community.
Now, Marnie, I know this is just one of many things happening. We've got music, there's a DJ.
Yep.
This is all a part of what you guys are doing for Hot Square Summer. Explain that to me.
Yes, Hot Square Summer is like having, your hot girl summer, having the fun. Toronto loves summer. We love summer at the square. So we're going to be having throughout the Tuesdays and Thursdays and select Fridays, different programming every week. We want people to come back, we want people to relax, we want people to catch a vibe, do some exercise. We have this exercising, we have movies, we have markets. So we got a lot of things that are going on, and it's all free.
I don't know if you know this, but free is my favorite price.
It is.
All right, well, we're going to send things back inside to the studio. We're going to jam to the music here. We're getting ready for what is going to be a Hot Square Summer. We'll send things back inside.
All right, thank you. It does kind of feel like summer just looking at that. You see the sprinkler there, people in shorts and T-shirts in the backdrop there. It's kind of feeling like summer's here, even though we're not quite technically there.
Yeah, it feels like we are there, given the stretch that we're on. Gosh, those sprinklers at Sankofa are just perfect on a day like today. And it is going to get even hotter over the next 2 days.
It is. So we've had the days of sun. We've got another one today. And you're right. We're turning up the heat for midweek. In fact, it's going to be feeling into the 30s by the time we reach Thursday or even Friday. There is also some wet weather on the way, and perhaps the timing of it isn't the most ideal. But we, at that point, will have gone almost 2 weeks without rain. So some might agree that it will be needed by then. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. CTV News Chopper was flying high above our city this morning. And look at that. The waterfront was already busy with people sitting in their chairs, enjoying a little shade under those umbrellas right by the waterfront downtown Toronto. Great day to be outside. The sun is strong. Do not underestimate the spring sun. So do what you have to do for sun protection. And of course, make sure you stay hydrated through the day too, because even though it's not our hottest day of the week, it's still pretty warm out there. Let's begin though with a look at the current satellite and radar. And while there isn't much to see here in southern Ontario, as we widen things out, you will notice a fair amount of rain that continues to fall across parts of Alberta, in and around Edmonton, Calgary, the foothills, and we've got some heavy bands of rain making their way through parts of Saskatchewan and even Manitoba also. We, on the other hand, have high pressure locked in place. We're going to continue to watch those disturbances to the west because often what's happening on the other side of the country ends up influencing us. But we don't have to worry about rain impacting our plans here at home for another couple of days. So this forecast radar, yes, it is in motion. There's not much happening. Might see a little bit of an increase in fair weather cloudiness from time to time. Friday, it is looking like our hottest day of the week at this point. It also could be our cloudiest, and by the end of the day, looks like we're going to get into a few showers or periods of wet weather, and that follows us into the day on Saturday. Right now it is 24 degrees at Pearson Airport. It's also quite warm across northern parts of Ontario. Once again, Red Lake is hot. It's 24 degrees right now in Geraldton, 23 in Muskoka. Nice day there. Also 21 this hour in and around Windsor. Sandy Lake, though, the big winner as far as warm temperatures are concerned right now, 27 degrees. Yesterday, we didn't even make it to 20, so this is certainly a warmer day. The next couple of days are going to be quite warm, including including this evening. Still in the 20s as we make our way toward 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Of course, after the sun sets, the temperature tends to fall a little bit. 11 is our forecast overnight low tonight. That's seasonal. It is going to be a bit chillier, though, for areas closer to the border with Quebec. So there is a frost advisory in place once again near Bancroft. Tomorrow, at a glance, 27 degrees. And if I can, I'll show you our 7-day forecast. Lots of sun until the weekend or Friday night. And then Saturday at this point is looking unsettled with showers. It's also going to be a little cooler.
Carry the fire for a world free from the fear of cancer. The Princess Margaret Cottage Lottery is on now. Here's your chance to win one of 3 incredible grand prize cottages, including this stunning Blue Mountain hillside cottage and $50,000 cash. There are more than 12,000 other incredible prizes to be won, valued at over $9 million. Every ticket supports life-saving cancer research. Buy now at princessmargaretlotto.com.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the Blue Jays will be back on the diamond tonight to begin a series with the Atlanta Braves. We'll have a preview when we return.
The Blue Jays begin a series with the Atlanta Braves tonight. The team was off yesterday after splitting a 4-game series with the Baltimore Orioles. The Jays are facing a tough opponent as Atlanta currently has the best record in baseball with 40 wins and 20 losses. Kevin Gausman will get the start for the Jays with first pitch set for 7:15 in Atlanta.
The Stanley Cup final begins tonight with the Carolina Hurricanes hosting the Vegas Golden Knights. Carolina beat the Montreal Canadiens in 5 games to earn their shot at the Cup, while Vegas swept the Colorado Avalanche to punch their ticket to the final. Carolina is making its first appearance in the final since winning the Stanley Cup back in 2006, while Vegas is playing for the NHL's top trophy for the 3rd time in its 9-season history.
Team Canada took on Uzbekistan last night in a friendly ahead of the FIFA World Cup.
Picked up by Oluwaseyi once again. Osorio drives it in!
TFC captain Jonathan Osorio got Canada on the board in the 58th minute of the match, which was played in Edmonton. Canada added another goal in the first minute of stoppage time to secure a 2-0 victory. The team will be back on the pitch Friday in Montreal to play Ireland in another friendly. Still to come, Uber has released its 2026 Lost and Found Index. We'll have a look at some of the unique items people have misplaced when we come back.
As the harmful impacts of social media become more clear, parents are looking for ways to keep their kids safe while also allowing them to take advantage of modern technology.
Now, one Ottawa mom says she's found a simple solution. CTV's Kimberly Johnson has the story.
What Teo Knight loves about his cell phone is being able to listen to his favorite music.
I just need headphones in my phone just to listen to my own music.
And while this Android phone may seem like any other, it's actually set up in a way that limits his access to certain content. No social media, no app store, and no internet browser. Just the ability to call, text, and access Spotify.
We want them to have access to music. We want them to be able to text us when soccer practice ends early. That doesn't mean that we want them watching endless videos off by themselves kind of thing.
He has a playlist that's for like his before soccer that pumps him up.
It's part of a pilot project started by parent Anne Fizette, which she has dubbed Boom Track.
I was just trying to figure out how can I create something that would satisfy him and what he needs in terms of like the developmental milestones that he's hitting, and at the same time protect him.
She purchased an Android phone and when setting it up used a management device on her computer to control what gets placed on the phone. It's similar to what workplaces will put on employees' phones to restrict some apps or abilities.
This isn't something incredibly new. It's just we haven't used it in terms of for kids.
Still, one tech expert warns the smartphone technology still exists under the surface of the phone, and parents should be cautious.
Any tech-savvy kid can go online and figure out how to bypass them and regain access to app stores and browsers and other features.
Today, Fizette says that she has nearly a dozen parents participating in the project. She's currently covering all of the setup costs, but hopes to expand this to a business if there's enough interest.
It feels like I'm actually part of everything
everything, and I'm not missing anything.
Kimberly Johnson, CTV News.
Uber has released its 2026 Lost and Found Index, offering a look at the items riders left behind in vehicles across Canada over the past year. Phones, of course, wallets and bags top the list of the most commonly forgotten items. But Uber says some riders also left behind some unusual things. They include a 15-pound frozen turkey in Toronto, a full set of goalie pads in Edmonton, and a violin hard case in Montreal. Uber says Saskatoon is Canada's most forgetful city.
You're watching CTV News at noon. More news coming up. Stay with us.
It is a terrific Tuesday. Weather-wise, we're on this roll. And I don't know, do you want the heat a little bit turned up?
Right where it is right now is pretty good. I don't mind it.
This is crowd-pleasing weather. It's not too hot, not too cold. Goldilocks weather, as we like to say as well. But it is going to get a little bit warmer, so just prepare accordingly. Starting tomorrow and then continuing until the end of the week. But first, here's your overnight at a glance. Seasonally cool, 11 is what we're forecasting. Partly cloudy skies. There's tomorrow and a high of 27 degrees. Our average temperature this time of year is 22. And a reminder that we were cooler than that yesterday. So certainly a change coming for the next 3 days. Here's what it looks like. Friday, we're going to increase the heat and increase the cloud cover. By the evening, it's possible that we will get into a few showers. And then Saturday is cloudy. It's unsettled. A couple of rounds of rain possible. And the weekend overall brings us a bit of relief from that heat with seasonably cool temperatures once again. Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.